Thank you everyone for joining us. This is the Aspire Hub Up Close and Personal, our anti-racism and multiculturalism workshop number 3. We started this journey back in July when we started this difficult but yet very important conversation around anti-racism and multiculturalism. And we've done 2 sessions already, and this is our 3rd. We have a couple of people joining us online on Zoom. Hi, Zoom friends. Thank you for joining us. And we have some people still mingling outside. We have barbecue going on outside. People are going to be coming in as we go on. If you want to treat yourself to some food as you come in, feel free. We brought some food inside already. You can get a burger, get a hot dog, get some fruits, make yourself comfortable. And then, let's do this together. So we are going to read the land acknowledgement, and then I will come back again to tell us a little bit about Aspire Hub. Tito, land acknowledgement. Sorry about that. Okay, you're gonna hold it.
We respectfully acknowledge that traditional land on which we reside is in Treaty 6 territory. We'd like to thank the diverse Indigenous people whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as the Nehiyaw, Cree, Dene Anishinaabe, Saulteaux, Nakota Iska, Nakota Sioux, and the Nistapi people. We also acknowledge this land is homeland of the Métis and home of one of the largest communities of the Inuit South in the 60th parallel.
Pass the baton right now to Sheila, who is going to introduce Noreen and get us started on why we're here today. I'm super excited for what we're going to learn. I'm super excited for the conversations that we're going to have. These conversations are not easy. We know that a lot of us have experienced these things in different flavors, in different ways, because we know that racism has different faces, but we keep talking about it. We keep getting support. We keep, gathering resources on how to help ourselves, how to support ourselves, because it truly does take a village to fight this thing. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me, Sheila and Noreen. A round of applause.
IKEA, and we're representing ourselves. And with that being said, what we're going to talk about, please don't exchange it for any existing relationship that you already have, whether with your doctor or your medical professional. It's great that you go and say, Miss Noreen said this to your teacher, but also don't say it and then end up in your class. We want to balance that, right? So just be gentle with yourselves as we go through. And this means there's no right or wrong answer. We're all coming to learn. And truly, we are also learning in the process with you guys. So most of our talk is going to be an activity, but we're going to go through a couple of slides just to get you guys situated. Oh, we'll get standing. So let's get to know the people that are in front. I think besides the hair that looks alike, we're a little different. So Shayla, who are you?
All right, so I thought about this question because in most places that we go to, people are comfortable with talking about what they do versus who I am. So who am I? I'm a mother of 3. I think that is the most important title that I have in the world. I'm a sister, but most importantly, I am my grandmother's daughter. So I was raised by my grandparents since I was 6 months old. So I can't talk about who I am without talking about them. So in a nutshell, those are some of the 3 titles that I hold. I'm a wife, obviously. And then when I talk about what I do, which can be confused with who I am a social worker. I'm a therapist. I'm a therapist, and sometimes I teach. So I think today we'll keep it short. Really, I am from Zimbabwe. I was born and raised in Zimbabwe. So when I came to Canada in 2004, I already had an idea about who I was, because I think that's really it's an ongoing thing. Our identities are developing, they are created for us sometimes, and they are always developing. So I think I am becoming somebody, but I knew who I was, had an idea of who I was. I already said I'm from Zimbabwe, I'm from the Ndebele tribe. There's 16 languages in Zimbabwe. I just took 2 of them, which is English and the Ndebele. So I think to keep it short, that's just who I am. As we go, as we speak, I think we may discover some parts of who I am, and I will hand over to Noreen to tell us who she is.
I love to ask this question because I won't say it's one of my favorite movies because I'm sure it's controversial in other spaces, but I probably watched this movie a million times and I can cite the words myself. From Black Panther, there's a scene where the cousin is asking, well, it's T'Challa asking Michael B. Jordan, the first one, his character name is not important, who he is, right? Because he knows if he asks that, you actually discover that they're related, right? Whereas if they describe him based on what he does, right? He was a soldier, blah, blah, blah. He was Killmonger, all of that. You don't actually get to know who he is. He is technically a Wakandan that has been living outside of that, right? So, and similar to Shayla, I often answer this by either going with the people that have had an influence in who I am, the shoulders that I stand on, and the reason why I am here. So those are my parents. This is a very complicated world. My dad's parents are from Malawi, but they migrated to Zimbabwe. So I'm technically born in Zimbabwe, not actually Zimbabwean. My mom's ancestry is from South Africa, but came to Zimbabwe as well. So I have all of that in the lovely mix. I am a daughter, a sister, a mom, a partner, I would say a friend, a community member that has been in Edmonton since 2007. I've been here too long. I don't know what the right track, I don't know what that means, but I've been here too long. Other things, I define myself as a lifelong learner. I am also an educator with that, and I am a self-proclaimed food connoisseur. So when I walked into the room and I could smell the food, I'm like, I'm ready. I do also love to cook on the side. What other things? Passions and interests. I love shopping. That's probably my only sport I participate in. Yes, I think the women in the room can attest to that. That is a sport, okay? It's not easy walking around the mall and finding the right thing. Right? When finding it when you don't need it yet. Right? Because by the time you need it, you won't be able to find it. Right? And like I said, I love to travel. I am a therapist by training, but I like to describe myself as a helper, as someone that joins people in their journeys of healing.
So I forgot a part that's important. Before I changed my name to Shayla, I was Smanye. And Smanye, like in Ndebele means we are surprised. But somehow, as part of my settlement process in Canada as an immigrant, and everybody was butchering that name. I already didn't like it. Only now, when I'm older, and when I know what I know, I think I know what happened, but we'll talk about that hopefully if the time permits. So I was convinced that it was easier to be a Shayla than to be a Seema. I shortened it to Seema, which it lost its meaning. So part of our names, our languages, our native languages that were stolen from us at one point in our lives as part of our identities are very important. So now I know that even though I legally changed it to Shayla, I will always be a Smangele. And Smangele means we are surprised. And the kind of surprise that I was, that's a different story altogether. But it is part of my identity. I didn't talk about my passions and interests. I love playing chess. And the reason of all the things that I like to do, I choose to talk about chess because I think it's a very interesting game. For how many people in this room can play chess? Okay, interesting. For those, it looks like the majority don't, and I think it's a good thing. When you play chess, white always moves fast first. That's really one of the rules, and it's not negotiable. So if two people are playing chess, you know that if you are black, you move last. And I'm not trying to, what's the word? I'm not trying to be controversial here, but I think those are some of the things that are so embedded in our everyday society that we don't really get to think about or talk about. But yes, so I do love playing chess. I think you can play a chess game for like an hour and have your mind taken away from all your day-to-day things. So I do love playing chess, and the people in the room that love playing chess, next time you play chess, think about that rule. I wonder where it came from. I haven't done my research, but I do love playing chess. So, and I love playing netball too. Those who are not born here, I'm pretty sure in your native countries, you may know what netball is, right? Does anybody know what netball is? Yay! All right, Noreen, I'll hand over to you. I just needed to talk about the things that other than being a therapist and other things else. And that is Noreen and I.
Well, and as we go along, it will become apparent as to why we're introducing ourselves this way. Because we want you guys to start thinking about how you introduce yourselves or how you think about yourselves, like things that are important for you. And it's not just the titles, right? The first thing you'll get is I'm a student, I am this, but there's a lot more to you that tells a bigger story, and that's what becomes really important. I would like to think everyone feels quite comfortable in this space. We're just going to make the space a little bit more safer, and that is to say we're creating a space for everyone to arrive gently and be in the space that we're in. So we start on African time, right? We have this, so we're accepting of this, but truly it's about wherever you're coming from and you're in this space now. We just ask that we know and recognize that life is happening, but while you're with us, just be here as much as you can, right? And honor the intimacy of the space, but of the people that are around, by also previewing certain things that are going to be shared in the room confidential, right? So whether it's now or later, if somebody says something, feel free to share the knowledge without sharing the name, without sharing the background and all of that, but do share the information that comes up, right? Do not assume, be one. So do not assume race, class, gender, sexuality, ability of anyone in the room. Right? We have individual opinions to share, and it is okay to do so. And we'll do that by taking up space, but also sharing space with others. When somebody else shares something, let's try and come with and instead of but. So with and, we're adding a different opinion, we're adding a different perspective, experience, but we're not taking away, right? And that becomes really important because everyone's lived experience is important, right? Understand the difference between intent and impact. No matter our intentions, we take responsibility for the impact of our actions. So I may say something with the greatest intentions, but it will be received differently by somebody else. And that means feel free to come up to either Shayla or myself and say, hey, this didn't sit well with me. And will let me take responsibility of our actions, and we're asking the same of each other within the space, right? Refrain from blaming or shaming. This is shaming self and others. Just because you don't share a similar experience doesn't take away from your experience or make you less than, right? It is not okay to feel like something needs to be changed when we're all just sharing and trying out. We're all learning, right? And I mentioned the take-up space, right? So also we encourage dialogue over debate through mindful listening. So when someone is sharing, give them the time to speak and to share. Like I said, confidentiality, yeah. Ask questions to understand and to embody, not questions to take away from someone else's lived experience. Did I miss anything? Okay. So Shayla will walk us through a grounding. As I mentioned, we recognize that life is happening outside, but we can ground ourselves to be present in the moment. And that's what we're going to do before we get started with our activity. All right, thank you, Noreen. So before we do the grounding activity, sounds loud. Does it sound okay?
Yes.
Okay, so before we do the grounding activity, I'm gonna tell you guys about Three Storytellers. It's a book. It's inspired by a book by Dr. Ana Gomez. So she talks about that all of us have three storytellers: the thinking brain, the heart, and the body. So with the thinking brain, all of us here, as we are sitting here, we all have a lot of thoughts going through our heads. Even before you left home, I'm guessing you were wondering about who's gonna be there, what are we gonna do? So we have really a lot of thoughts going into our head, and our hearts. When we talk about hearts, we're talking about feelings and emotions. And then when we talk about the bodies, that's where we experience a lot of things. So some of you may be familiar with the book, The Body Keeps Score. So as we are sitting here, a lot is maybe happening in our bodies. So with that, I'm going to invite you to, whoever is comfortable, to close your eyes. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. And if you don't want to close your eyes, I'm going to invite you to lower your gaze. So as we are in here in this room, we're going to hold space for all the babies, because it's all good. You don't have to apologize. We will do the grounding activity the best we can with the children that we have. So I'm going to invite you to experience your bodies. So with your eyes closed or your gaze, so you lower your gaze if you're comfortable. If you just look down, if you're comfortable, just find the place that you're focusing on. I'm going to ask you to scan your body from the crown of your head to the sole of your toes, and just focus on what's happening in your body. Any thoughts, any feelings, anything that's coming up in your body. Your job right now is to focus just on the quality of your thoughts, if you have any thoughts, but not the content. So you're just witnessing what's coming up. Focus on what's showing up for you, and experience. You can go in your shoulders and see what's happening in your shoulders. Are they stiff?
You can focus on your belly and see what's happening there. Is there any noises? You can drop down to your knees. And as you're doing that, if your body feels like it needs any stretch or it needs any movement, I invite you to respond to that. And as you experience the power of being here and now, I invite you to take a deep breath. So breathe in through your nose, hold it, and breathe out through your mouth. And we're going to do that again. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it 1, 2, 3, and exhale through your mouth. And one more time. And this time we're going to do it differently. Let's take a deep breath again together. And when you're breathing out, I'm going to ask you to do a loud sound, like stick your tongue out and go do it with me and go. And with that, you're welcome back in the room, and thank you for experiencing your bodies with me and Noreen here.
Thank you, Shayla. One of the initial thoughts I had in training to be a therapist was, I don't get this breathing thing. Why do we have to breathe? What is this about? I don't want to be that therapist that tells people to breathe, but I've come to understand that it's not the breathing yoga kind of style of it, but also understanding that we've always had ways of breathing within our own cultures, right? So when you think about drumming, that is your heartbeat, right? When you're dancing, you're breathing. So I'm more in tune to like breathing in line with how my environment, my culture does it, rather than feeling like, oh, I'm breathing, because I cannot, for the life out of me, get rid of thoughts in my head. They're going to be racing, right? And instead of trying to work against my body, it's supporting what my body already does, right? And that's why we do that breathing, because one, it's something that's already natural to us, but sometimes we don't recognize where it might be stemming from. So, what are you going to spend the next hour and a half learning or discovering about yourselves? We are not going to sit here and tell you what the experiences are. We're going to come up with those experiences together. And that is coming up with an understanding of what is being a youth. Right? And that is understanding the different intersectionalities that comes with that, right? You're a student, you're a daughter, you're a church member. What does that mean? What does that look like? Where does it sit in your different experiences? But also taking into consideration your emotions, the things that you do, right? When we're introducing ourselves, we try to really stay away from our job titles, the things that we do, but who we are, because that becomes really important. It doesn't matter at what age. And we really want the adults in the room to participate in this, because we want the kids to also see your own lived experiences of being you and what that meant, right? Gain an understanding of self, your values, your interests, your aspirations, but also your roots. I'm already leading into our activity here a little bit. And your roots may be this moment. It may be the people that are in this room, but it could be people that are no longer with us as well, right? And it's also creating a space for community. I do dabble in the neuroscience stuff, and it says, by interacting with someone, you are changed at a cellular level. So today, just by being in this space, we've all changed something. Something is going to move differently, right? Because what we know is our brains connect pathways, and that's why we're able to do the things that we do. But sometimes our brains need a different map, right? It's when your GPS says rerouting,
That's what we're hoping to do, is to reroute some of those experiences today, not to see them in just one lens, but see different lenses. Right? And also an opportunity to reclaim a new identity. I know, right? This is such big claims that we're making, but I think we can back them up. Especially knowing that a few minutes with someone changes you, I think we can reclaim a new understanding of ourselves just by being in this space today. So, Shayla, what are we doing?
Okay, so in each table, you have a tree of life guiding paper like that.
And you also have
Pencils and markers and drawing paper. So if we could get those ready and clear our tables if we can.
so I've been a therapist for
Going almost 11 years. And it took me 10 years to find Tree of Life. Prior to that, I was just using the Western psychology that they teach in school. And if you have been to a therapist before, or you're familiar with Western psychology tends to focus on problems. It tends to focus on labels. So Tree of Life today is going to help us to separate the problem from the person and learn to tell our stories in ways that make us stronger. And we're going to do that together by exploring different parts of our lives using the tree metaphor. So the tree just represents different areas of our lives. I'm gonna say our, since we're doing this together. And I'm just gonna emphasize that this is not an art project, so it doesn't matter how good your art skills are. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take this paper here. Is really a guiding tool. If you guys look in the bottom, so I think most of us, and I'm gonna say there's no right or wrong way of drawing your tree. So we are drawing this tree, our trees together. Even as parents, you can help the kids if they need help. But what I'm gonna suggest is that as parents, please be a support, but don't be dictating what goes into your child's tree, because they may see things differently than you do. You may help ask them questions about what's in the guiding paper here, but help them just do the tree on their draw the tree on their own. So we are drawing our trees together. Is everyone ready? Okay, so I'm gonna try and explain a little bit. Like I say, we're using the tree as the metaphor to look at different aspects of our lives from the past, present, and future. So, all right, we'll start with the ground together. So if we could get our pencils and markers together, we're drawing our tree, but we are starting with the ground. And the ground of your tree represents your present life. So that means you're gonna draw however you're gonna draw your ground, and you're gonna start labeling what your present life looks like. So for instance, my ground will have Beckerville. I live in Beckerville. I don't live in Edmonton. So Noreen's ground will have Edmonton, mine will have Beckerville. So we are labeling the ground of your tree, where you spend your day. So what grounds you as a person? So that goes in your tree, you draw the ground, and then you start labeling with the things that are in there that are guiding you. So we are drawing the ground of your tree. And then we are labeling, so you're using your words, you can use your markers, you can use your pencil to label what's in the ground of your tree. And if people are, one of the things that I like to put on my ground is what's something that you do not out of obligation, but because you actually want to do it. So as part of your grounding, put it down. I love the hand. I appreciate it. What is your favorite place? Yes. Yellow. Do you have a favorite memory that you always go to? You could also go as far as to putting your favorite food there. Why not? When we're done, we're gonna have our trees, like a whole tree label. So please don't worry about how it looks like. All trees are beautiful at the end of the day. They look different, but they are all beautiful. So I emphasize on not worrying about how it looks like for now. Let's just experience the drawing together. Okay, so if your ground of your tree is coming up, we're gonna move on to the roots. And the roots of your tree represents where you come from. I think when Noreen and I were introducing ourselves, we said we were, I don't know if Noreen did, but we're both from Zimbabwe. So that would go on the roots of our tree. And we are African, so that will go on your tree as well. So I'm giving you guys some hints here. So in the roots, for instance, as a child, we used to go to church every Sunday. That, depending on who you ask, that could go in my roots. If you, as a family, have some rituals that you did together as children, for those that are children, if you have any things that you do together as a family, maybe you eat dinner together, maybe you pray every night, that would go on your roots as well. So the things that go to your roots, the things that ground you as a family. So we may have some overlapping things, and that's okay. So your roots, we all have them. Every tree has roots. It may be short, it may be tall, but it does have its roots. So hopefully your tree is coming along. Where are you rooted? What are your roots? All right. You may go back to the different parts of your tree as you go. It's really meant to be a living document that you can revisit. And just so you know, from here on, feel free to draw your tree in a way that you feel led. So in a way that feels comfortable for you. So if you want to go into the trunk, go for it. And in the trunk there goes your skills and interests. So Noreen said she likes cooking. That could go in her trunk. And eating. And your skills and interests, sometimes our skills aren't really the things that we think we're good at. Maybe people have mentioned how kind you are. Maybe your parents have mentioned how helpful you are. That could go in there as well. Maybe you're good at drawing. So you label that in your trunk. And I think I like the branches. The branches are very important. What are your hopes and dreams and aspirations? And when we look at hopes and dreams and aspirations, it could be dreams you have or hopes you have for next week or tomorrow or 5 years from now. So don't let time limit you. And maybe you wanted to be a doctor when you were a kid. For those that are on the older side, meaning not the kids. Meaning not the kids, yes. So your hopes and dreams and aspirations there, they may have changed along as you grow, as you grew. And if the kids, for those that have their kids with them or they're helping with them, they're helping them with the trees, with the drawing. If they have no clue what they want to be, let's just handle that with curiosity. Let's not give them ideas so that they can have their own dreams and hopes. But sometimes as parents, we have hopes and dreams for our children. You want your kid to be a doctor, maybe your kid want to be a swimmer. So let them dream their own dreams and hope their own hopes. And in the hopes and dreams and wishes, your hopes and dreams and wishes could be for other people, maybe other people that are important in your life, and maybe you have dreams for your friends or parents, or so don't limit yourself. And every tree in this activity is going to have fruits. So in the fruits there, we are talking about your fruits represent gifts that were given to you. Maybe people say you look like your mom, or you look like your dad, or you act like your grandfather, or you are kind like your grandma. All of that goes there, can go there. Kindness and love, or and my most favorite one is the leaves. So the most important people in your life, and the most important people in your life doesn't really have to be people that are alive. It can be people that are no longer here. They remain important even when they are not physically here. So as you think about the most important in your life, they can be friends, they can be family, they can be church friends, they can be your neighbors. So you just label, you can actually write names if you're comfortable and use initials if you want. And please take whatever pace feels comfortable for you. If you chose to draw your tree, as this was by invitation, take whatever pace you need. And if your tree has a ground, root, trunk, fruits, leaves, and branches, at the top or wherever you have space, you can draw a little cloud that represents storms. And storms represents any challenges, any problems, any losses, anything that has been stressful to you. And with the kids, for parents, I know that sometimes we often say, well, you have a food, you have a roof over your head and you have food. What else could be stressing you? Kids do have stress too. And I'm going to take the time to honor and validate that. So let them talk about their storms. What has been difficult for you?
in the last year or anything that you can remember as something that has stressed you in your life can go in the storms. As we are drawing your trees, I'm gonna ask you guys to think about what are some challenges that trees in the forest actually experience. And I'm gonna give an example, is actually a storm being one of them, harsh weather. What are some storms that we can think of for the trees, and maybe that might help us to think about our own stories? How are people's trees coming along? I can see the ones on our table here. And how about our online community? I hope people chose to draw their own trees online. Well, we should have shared this with them. I hope they're following along. Yes. And they see. And we can always send the handout after for the people online. We swear we are not prioritizing those here. We love you all. We are all family. All right, people, and I want to say that the process here is more of a continuing part of our story. I'm not going to say begin, because I think that the story began many years ago when we were born. So we can always go back to that tree. We can always redo it. We can add and take out some stuff. And it looks like many of you use pencils. So this is the beautiful part of it, because you can always take out things. So is everyone done? I like that answer. And we don't have to be done, by the way. Yes. Okay. So we don't have to be done, but we've experienced drawing our trees together, being in community with each other, witnessing each other's stories as you were reflecting and drawing and writing. Does anyone have a brown marker? Please. Yes, thank you. It is really important that it had to be brown. It has to be brown. Okay. So as Shayla said, we wanted to get people started, but we're not ending, right? We're just gonna have a few people come and speak to us on the different things, on different topics. And maybe that's also going to help spark some of the conversation, right? So whether they're coming and talking about potential solutions, resources that are available, you can also keep thinking about the storms, or you can think about the things that ground you. You can also think about the fruits that you've been given. We've literally been given food here, but I also think we've been given the opportunity to even come together, right? That's a fruit that isn't always available. All right.
It's been an amazing afternoon, brothers and sisters. Thank you so much for spending some of your Saturday with us. My job is to introduce our Councillor Jennifer Rice. But before I do so, I wanted to say thank you to every VIP here. We're all VIPs. I love you all so much. Thank you for honoring our invitation. Thank you. Now, the heart of anti-racism is men and women, brothers and sisters.
Some like racism behaviors or incidents or criminals and then against the people, the color of the people. And then I do understand how challenging for our community because I'm a part of the community and I'm minority community as well. And even as a counselor, I can tell you how much challenge I have facing as a colored woman in the council. And then even how much challenge I'm facing and through the media, social media, and because people don't know us. They don't understand our culture. They don't understand our background. And so we need our voice to be outside there and tell them our story, tell them contribution our community made and for our city. Because our city, and you probably know, we have 70, that means 70 ethnic groups and across the entire city. And without those ethnic groups support contribution to our city, and our city cannot be like today. So your contribution, think about your own voice and your contribution actually make our city stronger. We work together and then our voice and it can be stronger. And I really want to say, I come here as a first generation immigrant. English is my second language. So if I can do it, become the counselor, many of you here, and specifically our future leaders here, you can do it. And then if you decide to do it, I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you. Because I want to use my own experience, and you use my own story, and then encourage everyone, and then you have that capacity also to do it. So with city's anti-racism strategy, I want to talk about a little bit about our city's funding and grant. We have specific funding and for the anti-racism. So if you, as a community, you have the project, you have a program, and you want to do it, and feel free, and you apply city's funding. And also our city has the community safety and well-being grants. So that grant and covered like 5 pillars. Under each pillar, and we have different program and different project. So you can use those type of resources to help our community. Like today, this type of event, and then we can get city support, and as long as you receive the city's funding. So that means in our city, we put lots of effort and working together to ensure our city not tolerance any racism behaviors and racism and incident. So we are here to support our community. So I really like. Do you like this? Do you like this tree of life?
Yes.
I really like it, and because I was sitting there to do the refraction. To do refraction, what I put for the leaves, what I put the branches, what my roots. And so when we grow up or when we do anything in our society, we never forgot our root. That is because fundamental. That is fundamental our resources and our force and to support us. That is really important. And also what's important people in our life. That make me reflect. And also for our younger generation here, for our kids here, just looking forward. Who will be most important people in our life? What skills I'm going to practice? This life, this tree of life, these exercises, and actually is a great idea. And for us to look back our life and also look forward our life. I don't want to take too much time from you, and because it's a Saturday and everybody enjoying eating here, and this is a great opportunity we gather together, and I want to say the ladies corner and did a great job. And since 2021, I know you. You are always doing great job trying to bring our community together. But if you have any questions here, I'm more than happy to answer your questions. Racism is not only on the surface. Racism is systematical. And is a systematic problem in the system. Right now, our city, we are put lots of effort and try to look into that system. And because, like you mentioned, this new council, and we have a colored mayor, and the mayor and we just had lots of talking about. Mayor said, I come from like the minority community, and then he told me you come from minority, right? But this demonstrate our city, we can do the good job for our city, and we must do good job for our city. And this is demonstrate the example. We are working hard and to resolve this racism problem. So that is why the anti-racism strategy we put in place right away once this new council forms.
Thank you very much, Councilor Rice. That was beyond awesome. Thank you very much. It's kind of important to invite our next speaker. I've been taking some night classes, and in the class they go on to racism director, government of Alberta. The way they drag all these titles in the class I take makes me want to be like Ms. Sochio Gona today. She's actually the director, listen to this, director of programs, policy and strategy, multiculturalism and anti-racism branch government of Alberta. Wow. Thank you. Ms. Sochio. You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing? Good to see everyone. So yes, I think we were talking about titles before and how they're not important, and I really don't think it's about the title. I do work for the government. I work within the Ministry of Immigration and Multiculturalism. And I'm happy to say that when I look at all our branch as we go down, as I look at my ED, I'm the director, I think of the program managers, I think of the anti-racism advisors, they are all of color, which excites me that we have a whole team just working towards anti-racism. If one knows, within the new mandate given to our minister, Mohammed Yassin, in the mandate they talked about anti-racism legislation, and it's exciting that we're working on anti-racism legislation at the moment. So that's exciting too. I'll tell you a story of how I first, when racism hit me and I didn't know that I was being racist. We moved to Canada about 18 years ago now, moved to Toronto first. And when I came, I'm a social worker by trade. I've been a social worker for the last 20 years. It's a role I love. But when I first moved over, my husband and I had to apply for jobs. And I was moving from England. We just moved over. And I had sent out, and I'm not exaggerating, close to 100 resumes. And I didn't get one response. And then my cousin came over. Because yeah, Nigerian brothers. Okay.
We do have someone like this. Please bear with us.
That's okay. So I looked for a job for maybe about 2 or 3 months, and I didn't get one call back. Then my cousin came over to our house one day, and I was beginning to feel depressed. And she said, "Oh, let me see your resume." And I showed her my resume. And on my resume, my first name is Chinamaram. I had Chinamaram Obunna. And she burst out laughing. And she said, "No one's going to give you a job." I said, "Why not?" She said, "Your name is too long. They're not going to be able to pronounce it." She said, "Why don't you change it to..." She looked at my name and said, why don't you shorten it to China? And sure enough, this was me then, young and naive. I changed my name to China. I shortened it to China. And it made new resumes, and I sent out all the new resumes. Every single job I applied for, I got a call back with my new name. And China stuck for years, and it still does. This is 20 years later. But when I decided to come for this event, one of the things that made it possible for me to come was because T said it was a youth event. And youth are dear to my heart. I have 3 kids who 17, 13, and 11. And it's important to me that they understand their identity. So if any youth in the room, please, 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 own who you are. Own your heritage. Own your being. So I've only worked for the government for 4 months, 5 months coming up to. But prior to that, I was with Edmonton Catholic Schools for 10 years. And I was the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Anti-Racism Specialist for those schools. So I am, and I've gone to, some of you I can recognize because I've gone to your school and I've given the conversations and the talks. It's really important that within schools, that you own who you are. It's very important that when a teacher or a principal wants to shorten your name, you say, no, that's not my name. And if they can take the time to learn to pronounce other names, they can pronounce yours too. It is very important that when literature in schools are being read, that you're able to say, hey miss, or hey mister, or hey whoever your teacher's name is, do you have other literature that I can identify with to read and study? There's nothing wrong with that as far as you say it politely. It's very important that within your schools, that you lead anti-racism groups, that you lead leadership groups. There is nothing wrong with that. And it's going to start from someone, and I hope it starts from one of you within your schools here, because that's really important. Okay. Thank you everyone for being here.
I also lived in London, England, and then lived there for 7 years, and then my whole family came to Canada. So I come from a family of 6. I'm the eldest, unfortunately. So there's 5 younger than me. We're a big family. There's a lot of loud noises. And then, so we grew up in Toronto. So I don't know who said they were from Toronto. Somebody said that. Yeah, from Toronto. So I grew up in Toronto. It's very multicultural in Toronto. And then in 2006, so a year before you, I came to Edmonton, Alberta. Let me tell you, it wasn't that diverse as it is now. And so talking about racism, let me tell you, that was a rude awakening for me. Came to Edmonton, Alberta in 2006. I went to University of Alberta, but I went to Augustana, which is like a small little city outside of Edmonton called Camrose. Let me tell you, I stuck out like a sore thumb. I ended up hanging out with the international students instead. So I honestly, actually, let me go a little bit back. The first time I came to Edmonton, my siblings and I were like, we'll go for a walk. We lived in North Side. So we walked to Londonderry Mall, went to one of the stores, and we got followed. I was like, what's going on here? Is she following me? Like, so that was really shocking because there was other problems in Toronto, but that was one of them. Like, it wasn't because of my skin color that was more discriminating against me. And so that was one of the first big, and I was quite young. I was 18 years old at that time. And so it was just a shock to me and I couldn't believe it. And I addressed it and I talked to my, let me talk to your manager. She was like, I am the manager. I was like, oh, darn. This is not going to go well if the manager's doing this. So, yeah, unfortunately, that was like a big wake-up call for me. And then after that, I went to school. So my big thing was, you know what? I'm not going to take it offense. I'm not going to take it as an offense because a lot of the people don't have any exposure to us. A lot of them came from small towns. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have a big smile on my face. And I'm going to educate them. I'm going to tell them who I am, where I come from, and that's how I'm going to do it. And so that's always been my thing, is not to, get too bitter, to see the best side of it and take the opportunity to educate somebody. So, because a lot of them is ignorance, right? So that was one of the first things. And then I went to university, came back to Edmonton. And then I started doing a lot of community stuff, like advocate for community. So what youth like you, I'm always like excited to see them put yourself out there, get into like programs, because let me tell you, you learn a lot about yourself and you learn a lot of skills. And so, yeah, and then I started working with the Muslim Chief Advisory for the Police Commission. That was my first exposure to policing. And then we had one of the constables who was a Black constable. He came over to talk about hate crime. So hate crime is about people doing any criminal activities because of somebody's like discriminating against them because of their skin color. So it was interesting to see that they had a whole unit in the police force for that, which I did not know that was a thing. So that was really cool to know that they were actually had a unit that was dedicated to this and was willing to help others. So got exposed there, and then I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna look into this profession. I looked into it, became a police officer. I've now been a police officer for 8 years. It's been a while, and it was to my shock that I was the first Somali police officer female ever in Canada, which was like shocking because we are a big population in Canada. And then forget about that. I came into the force and there was not that many women that looked like me. And that was heartbreaking. There's not that many women on the force, but then on top of that, there was none that looked like me. So let me tell you, when we saw each other, we're like, oh, it's another one. And we were getting really excited about it. And so I'm all about, if that's something that interests anyone, please look into that career. I know a lot of our African parents are scared, but that's every parent. My mom wasn't the biggest fan of me being a police officer. I had to do a lot of convincing. But it's definitely something I try to tell kids that, you know what, if you are ever interested, by all means, there's so many programs that we do hold. We hold a lot of youth camps, a lot of academy that they can like for a week get to do all the cool stuff that cops do. They even do the fitness tests, which is like a lot of people get scared about, but it's fun. You do a whole lot of running. So a lot of running of that. And so you get to meet the K9 unit, get to meet all the different units that we have in policing. And that's the one thing that's really cool about policing. You don't get to stick to one thing. There is so many things that you can do. But you start from patrol, so I did patrol, and now I'm working with missing youth. There's a section of like items, so like science stuff, fingerprinting, there's so many areas in policing. So I definitely am I'm a big advocate of like, let's get more people on the force that look like us. Because I always say the police force should be a representative of the community it serves. And in Edmonton right now, we are a very diverse community. So, and the little experience that I've had on the force, I'm just like, we need more of us. Because there's a lot of time, they know I'm African, so I'll get a call sometimes. Like, I remember my first couple of years, they call me, hey, Mom. I'm like, yeah, I'm at an African family house. I'm like, yes. Can you come and translate? I was like, African? It's a continent, right? There's like many countries there. I don't speak African. I speak that's a little anecdote that we need more of us to represent on the force, right? And so I'm all about so we need more representation because that was I called it a learning moment. and I was like, it's a teachable moment. I don't speak the whole language of Africa, but there's not one language in Africa. There's many languages in Africa. Sometimes there's multiple languages in one country, shockingly enough. So that was a very interesting question I got. And that's one of many other funny stories I've come across on this lovely journey of my career. But yes, I can continue talking forever. So I was hoping to see if any of if you had any question. Unfortunately, I wanted to come in my uniform today, so you can actually see my uniform, but I couldn't do it today. But hopefully I'll come to another event and then you'll see the whole uniform because I think people get excited for the whole uniform. But if you have any questions right now, kiddos, your opportunity. We gotta, not even kiddos, adults can ask questions too. Honestly, if you're with an adult, I would probably speak to that adult first, just because unfortunately staff would only kind of respond better with an adult. However, even if there's not an adult down, you would ask for their name. Sometimes usually always have name tags, right? I always say, write down the name tags. Write down the name tags, and then maybe then you can go speak to your parents, and then you guys can maybe write a letter to the store. And then just letting them know that I've experienced that, and I would appreciate that to be addressed to the staff that made you feel that way about yourself. Does that make sense? That's how that's the way I would navigate it.
But in that moment.
In that
what
moment.
should what should
The youth?
response be?
Oh, the response to them.
Yeah.
You know what? You can definitely ask, is there anything I'm doing that's making you uncomfortable? Like you can have to ask that question. If they become, if they're not cooperative or they're not talking to you in a respectful manner, I wouldn't engage. I would just write down their name and then let your parents know. Does that sound like a good? Yeah, and you can walk away too. That is nothing wrong or shameful about walking away. You can always walk away as well too. But for me, I'm a type of person, I'm like, I want to hold people accountable for their actions. So I like to get names down. So that's what I do. Personally, that was what I would do. Just even if you don't want to talk to them, just look for their name tag, because usually they all have name tags. And then write down their name or like take a picture of it and then keep it moving. Sounds like a good idea. I like it. Oh, and then another thing. Oh yeah, sorry. Now that you just brought that up, that made me think. So say that you guys face an incident where somebody racially profiles you and then says like hateful speech things to you. So what you can do is you can report that to police, and that's called a hate incident. So if somebody is saying any derogatory things towards you because of your race, I would definitely report it, because even though there might not be any criminal charges or anything of that sort, at least that documents that this person has like that behavior. And that because say that behavior escalates later on, having all that documentation of the incidents they've had with others will help. There's no, unfortunately, in the criminal book, there's no actual racist charge, unfortunately. However, if they do commit a criminal act and then there's a hatred fueled by it, by any type of discrimination, that's then will add another charge that just says that this was a hate crime. Does that make sense? So now so there's a crime and it was fueled by hate, that's a hate crime. But then if it's just verbally being abusive, that's a hate incident. Does that make sense? Awesome. All right. And if you have any other questions, another question?
Yeah. So you mentioned that you have very few people that look like a crime.
Mhm.
How do you cope on day-to-day basis? I know that the police comes through.
Yeah.
Seeing a person of color is challenging. How do you cope?
Oh, 100%. It's definitely challenging. How do I cope? That's a very good question. There's some days it is very emotionally and mentally draining. Have to be the one to be speaking on against everything and like, hey, holding you accountable. So for me is I do the best I can at that very moment. And then when I'm out of that environment and I go back home to my little guy, I shut that off. Because if I take it home, it's just gonna get me more riled up and I won't be present for my child. And my child comes first. Like she said, I think it was mother title is the number one thing. And so I'll never bring anything of that home, but I definitely try to address it in the most appropriate way at that very moment. And you know what, not to say that every day I can show up being very appropriate. Sometimes I have to walk away. Somebody said, there's some days where I'm like, I can't handle this. I gotta walk away. My mental health comes first before trying to educate anyone else.
Right.
So. Any other questions for me? No? Nothing from the youth? Oh, yeah.
I often see a lot of kids with their trousers down, black boys. And from a policing point of view,
Yeah.
if you speak on how maybe boys and girls need to behave or dress, or maybe from your side, which I don't know what you say,
You know what? You know what? I'm gonna be real with you. You can dress whatever way you want. Nobody should ever discriminate you against how you dress. Like you can come as you want, unless you did anything criminal. I say you can like, are there gonna be stereotypes? 100%. They'll always have stereotypes. But what happens is that when a lot of time when we get called and they give us description, they'll say like it's a black male wearing like jogging pants and a shirt. So if a police officer does approach you, you can ask them, do I fit some type of description? Why are you stopping me? And they can only stop you if they think that if there's only a call saying the description of you. And I hope you guys know there is a campaign in EPS that has Know Your Rights. So know your rights. A police officer can't ask you questions about your name or whatnot unless there is an actual criminal offense or if you're a suspect or something. Does that make sense? Yeah, so I wouldn't say there's a particular way you need to look, because that's promoting something on like, no, you can wear whatever you. That's a very good question. Honestly, they shouldn't be there. The only reason a police officer should be able to pull you over or is that you did some kind of traffic infraction, or if they want to check your license and insurance and registration. If there's like something wrong with your vehicle, of course, that's about it. And coming approaching a group of kids, like I've approached kids that have like really baggy clothes or whatever, and they're the most respectful kids ever. They'll be very respectful. But for me, it's a different experience from a white male who came from he might have his own bias. And we all have to remember everyone comes with their own bias into every field they work in, right? And so would you be more targeted by that person? Probably. I'm not gonna say you wouldn't. They probably have their own bias that they're coming in with. Yeah, does that make sense?
Because the reason why I like the question was about that.
Yeah.
That was one thing that you were
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And if you dress like that, you're definitely
Getting stopped?
You gotta be stopped. You gotta be targeted, right? So that's why I'm curious if there's a track record here that you know there needs to be.
Yeah, I honestly wouldn't say that I've noticed that, from my personal experience. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right there.
Would you think that I was gonna say that recently I went to the Cary West Festival and there was a little bit of drama there, but I was just wondering, would you say more people get either stopped by the police or checked out by the police when they're alone or in a group? Because many people were there and some people came as 2, some people came as 7, 8. And like, it was like the big groups that I saw, there was some trouble there and it was the big groups that got stopped and like then the little groups came. So would it say big groups attract the police's attention or small groups to single people?
That's a very good question. Was that a Saturday? Was that on Saturday?
Yeah.
So I was working Friday. I didn't see you. Saturday, that was a very big event. So I will be honest, when there's a big event like that and there's big grouping, usually people tend to have a bit more rambunctious to show off to others. So that's why probably police thought that they should break that up if there was something going on. Because when you're alone, many people don't try to do anything. But when they're in a group, they want to impress their friends, oh, look what I'm doing. And so that's probably why, from my own experience, that's kind of what I see. You want to say something, please? You want to say hello? Hello? So yeah, so I would think that if there was some kind of trouble going on, we always want to disperse because people will do less trouble when they're not getting rooted and like, you know what I mean? Hyped up by their buddies. So that's what I think. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Look at that, we're getting more. I love it.
Yeah, so about the dressing, like, sorry. My question is about the dressing, any way you want to. So do you think we should not do it or should we just like, there's a normal like Canadian, there's a way Canadians dress, like just a normal t-shirt, trousers or something. But then maybe if you wear your native dress, like the African dress or something, is this something we should do or not do to try to like avoid these kinds of stuff? I don't know if you understand. And another thing is like maybe your hair. It's like keeping my hair this way. It was actually a struggle for me because I was thinking, okay, do I do this? Do I do it another way? I don't want to seem too wild because of my hair or something like that. So do you think it's something we should do? Is it something we should embrace or something we should not do to like avoid this kind?
That's a very good question, my dear. Honestly, I'm gonna be real with you. I wear my African dress out sometimes, and I don't even bat an eyelash. You know what I mean? I don't think that's gonna attract you. Are you gonna stick out? 100%. We're always gonna stick out. But guess what? Our skin color, as long as we're black, we're always gonna stick out, unfortunately. And that's just a matter of factor thing. But if you're holding yourself in good you're respectful and you're respectful to others, which I know a lot of African parents, they always teach us to respect our elders, so I can't imagine us being raised that disrespectful. I don't think that it should be an issue, and hair, let me tell you, I had an issue on the job with my hair. So as you can see, this curls, I gotta put it in a bun, and then one lady is like, your bun is not, it's too big. I was like, my hair's not straight, it's curly, it's never gonna be. So I have to let them know that my hair is not the same as you, so you're not gonna see the same product. So, I would say no, enjoy your hair. You know, like let them know that this is how I wear my hair and that's how it is. And I definitely have. Did I have to tame it? Of course, I had to put it back and follow the rules, which is like, I have to have it like slick back in a bun. But my bun's gonna be big because my hair's not straight. It's curly. So, I don't think so. I don't think that should be a problem. I don't think it's gonna attract you. The only reason it will attract, officers, it should only attract officer is if you fit a description that they're looking for. That's it. But it shouldn't attract them just to stop you. There shouldn't be any reason they would stop you because of how you dress or how you wear your hair. However, personally, low bag pants, I don't know how to walk in them. I personally don't think, well, how do you walk? It would be very uncomfortable. But it's everyone, whoever would think they're comfortable, whatever they're wearing, let them wear it. That's what I say. Okay? Yeah, of course.
I also think when it comes to dressing, we have to recognize that there's youth culture, right? The whole purpose of today is for us talking about the identity of youth. That identity of youth is not going to look the way we expect it to, right? And as parents, kids use clothes to express themselves. Kids can express themselves with their hair, and that's part of them forming that identity. If we want them to fit a certain mold, we don't do that by saying it's going to attract the police, because that's not actually creating a healthy relationship with the police, right? They're meant to be there to protect and be part of your community, but not impede on your identity, right? And this is why we're doing the activity, right? So what are the things that are important to you? If dress is something that's important to you, then use it to express yourself. I, for one, don't fit the mold of what a therapist looks like, right? And I do have to think about what I wear to my session so that my clients take me professionally seriously. But that's part of the struggle that we have, right? And it's not something that as a youth, I feel like we need to have our kids already boxing themselves at that age, right? Clothing does not speak, I want this or I don't do this. It is how people interpret that clothing that makes a difference. So if we can normalize that, it's okay for you to have short hair, go right ahead, right? Because for the longest of time, I didn't want to wear short hair because that's what my dad wanted in order not to attract the boys and have attention, right? But as life went on, I embraced it because it was becoming part of my identity, not to be relaxing my head, right? So it's reclaiming that identity in a way that makes sense and feels safe, rather than feeling like we're imposed to do things so that we don't be seen as criminals. As you say, people will have their stereotypes, people will see us however they want to see us. But what becomes really important is at the end of the day, when I look at myself, am I proud of who I am? Am I able to sit with the person that I am? Whether it's my name, whether it's how I look, it's what I'm putting on. Those are the things that I can control, because in the society that we live in, there's a lot of things that we can't. And if clothing is one way that you are expressing yourself, I don't think it's helpful for parents to take that opportunity away from kids as well.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Oh, we got another one right here. Wait.
Not really a question, just to add on to the hair topic, but I really like my natural hair, but every time of, how many months, 3 months after getting it raised, and then I take it out, then I can do my own stuff. And I realized, because I go to a small school and it's a mainly white school, and I go with my natural, normally having the 2 puffs at the top. And you get called these names like Mickey Mouse and all these, where you're like, okay, move on. But I straightened my hair for the first time in a while. I got a silk press, and then someone told me, oh, I like your hair, but it's straight. I said, cool, nice opinion. I like it curly. And I just feel like that we should just realize that how you like your hair is how you like your hair. It doesn't matter how they want to tell you how to do your hair because it's your own, and that's how I do express myself in all these crazy styles. And just wanted to add that.
That was amazing. Couldn't have said it better myself. Love it. All right.
Well, it's a combination of lots of things. Knowing who you are, what your values are, and being proud of all those things creates your identity. One way to learn more about yourself and your identity is to think about your values. Values are a group of characteristics, ideas, or areas in life that are important to you. Some of your values could include honesty, generosity, good manners, determination, creativity, leadership, kindness, or loyalty. But of course, every single person is unique, which means everyone values things differently. Did you know that you can learn from others who have different values to you? It's a great opportunity to see the world from another person's perspective, which will help you stay open-minded. Here are some tips to help you recognise what you value and to feel good about your personal identity. Write a list of all the things you love. This will help you get in touch with your values. What types of books do you like to read? What subjects do you like in school? What motivates you? The answers to these might reveal a lot about your values. For example, if you really enjoy science at school, you might value curiosity and exploration. If you like team sports, you might value teamwork and cooperation. Maybe you can use this list to identify what your core values are and how they play a part in your everyday life. Get to know and celebrate your culture and language. Your culture and language are huge parts of who you are, and you should be proud of and celebrate them. Cultures and languages help to create the colourful world that we enjoy every day. So it's wonderful to share these things with others. The final tip is, don't be afraid to be you. The exciting thing about the world is that everyone is totally unique. There is only one you. Everybody has their own special traits and talents, and this is what makes our world so diverse and interesting. Just imagine if everyone was the same. What a boring world that would be. Even if you feel like you have traits that are negative or embarrassing, remember that it is just another part of how unique you are, and you shouldn't feel ashamed of them. So don't be afraid to be you, because nobody can do it better than, well, you. As you go through life, you'll experience new things and learn more about who you are, which will influence your identity. Some things will always be part of who you are, like your core values and your ethnicity. And some other parts of your identity may change with time, like your hobbies or relationships. But remember, the most important thing about identity is to stay true to yourself and your values, and be proud of who you are.
I was curious to know if, as you were drawing your trees, is anyone interested in sharing what stood out for them or what surprised them as you were drawing your trees? Or for those that were helping your children, did something surprise you or stick out as you were drawing? Right, and you also don't have to finish, you can continue at home. That was just meant to start thinking about your story in a way that makes you stronger as a person. So as you're looking at your trees, the we talked about racism. So if racism or bullying are those experiences that you've been through, they will probably be in your storms. So another homework that I will give you guys is to think about seeds and flowers. So we talked about storms. So in your seeds and flowers at home, you can think about what legacies do you want to leave behind, and that becomes part of your story. I know the kids may not have thought about to put it simple as a kid, how do you want to be remembered one day? Whether you're gonna leave elementary school and go to high school, how do you want your friends to remember you? And that will go in your seeds and flowers of your tree. Does anyone want to share about their experience of drawing their tree? What was the most highlight for you? But also your tree is your story, so if you don't want to share, that's okay. So under normal circumstances, this was just, we forgot to honor that Tree of Life was actually developed by an African woman. She's in South Africa. She's a psychologist. She realized that Western psychology was really not working for the African communities that she was working with, and that's how she developed Tree of Life as an Afrocentric part of narrative therapy. So under normal circumstances, right now, we will be sticking all your trees together to form a forest. But we don't have that opportunity today. Hopefully, in the future events, we can get to do that, where we can draw all our trees together and get to put them together, and also do what we call outside the witness, where someone can say what they are seeing from how you're telling your story, from the things that you shared, what they didn't know about you and what surprised them. So we are not going to be able to do that today, but I hope that that was a great experience for you. And you can do it at home too. And do you guys have any questions for Noreen and I? We gave a disclaimer that this is not therapy, but we can answer questions if there are any. We have our cards here as well, but are there any questions about Tree of Life and mental health in general, or anything to do with today, or the activities that you guys did today? Are there any questions?
No question. So thank you so much for your time and for taking the time to teach us about values. I guess that's the key word that's that I'm taking away. Just staying true to who I am in spite of whatever circumstances, in spite of whichever spaces or rooms that I'm showing up. I'm challenging every young person and every old person in this room, older person in this room, to also keep doing the same. Question for you is, how do you demystify mental health issues in our community? What's the approach that you've been using to talk to people to not see mental health as a stigma, but to see it as an opportunity to get help? That's question number one.
Earlier on, I talked about Western psychology. I keep referring to that because mental health as a field is populated by white folks. So I think one of the things that is important is walking into a mental health clinic or office and finding people that look like you. So that's where we begin by they say representation matters, but we all know that being Black is not enough. It's kind of the work that we're doing. So doing the inner work that we are doing as therapists, it always begins with us. So I want to share, I always share that I'm a therapist who is in therapy. I have my own therapist. So that's another way that I'm demystifying. I can be a therapist who doesn't believe in what I'm doing. So normalizing conversations about therapy. We did Tree of Life together today. That was one of the examples
We're not labeling people, we're not pathologizing people. We give people spaces to, we hold space. We don't label people, we don't hold sessions, we hold space. And people are allowed to come as they are. You come in my online sessions, if you show up with a bonnet, we're good. If you show up with your dreadlock, I'm not going to be asking to touch your hair and all of that. So I think that just being us alone is maybe enough if we are doing the work that we are doing. Noreen and I are co-founders of our Better Black Therapists Network, which is a network of Black therapists. Noreen, how many therapists do we have? So there's 62 of us in Alberta. And I'll let Noreen talk about Alberta Black Therapists, but that's one of the ways, knowing that there's a space for you by us, by some of us that look like you. And so I hope that answers your question in a way. Fun fact, I received an article yesterday that said there's only 4 Black psychologists in Alberta. What? Right? There's more, right? But that is truly speaking to the lack of advocacy and who does the research, who gets to be visible, right? Because at the end of the day, we can all sit here and say we recognize that mental health is important. But when it comes down to, I'm pretty sure everyone in this room has benefits for mental health. Do you use them? No, right? So then when they do that stat, they say only 2 Black people use therapy. Did we actually demystify mental health in that experience? No, right? Because we probably say, my problems don't need to go to therapy. But it also says we don't get counted. It also says we don't become visible. It also says my experience is not, I'm using quotation marks, good enough to be part of the conversation. But in reality, you don't have to go to therapy because you have been diagnosed with a mental illness. If you have a head at the top of your body, go to therapy. If you have a mother, go to therapy. That means everyone, right? Because there's no one who just dropped off a tree. You don't have to go with a specific agenda. You can figure that out when you do, right? Because oftentimes, when Shayla mentioned, kids have stress too. Your child doesn't have to be labeled at school for you to take them to therapy. You can simply say, we do have these benefits. Let's look for somebody that's present for you to talk to. Some of my clients that are white show up and they're like, oh, I don't know what to talk about today. And I'm like, what movie have you watched? We talk about that. It's not necessarily that there's a problem, but kids get to know that there's someone that they can go to if there is, right? Because as much as parents, we want to be our safe space for our kids, usually we're not, because we also do the parenting part of it, right? So you're not the first person that your kids want to go to tell certain things. But if you already have a relationship with someone, you know your kids are in good hands, right? It takes a village. The village just looks different. You used to be able to send them to your auntie, to your grandparent, but also the therapist can be part of your village, right? You can find a therapist that looks like you, that speaks your language, that shares the same values. That can be the role that you play as a parent to facilitate that, instead of simply saying you don't have problems. And problems don't look one way. And this person is not in the room right now, so I'm allowed to share the knowledge in confidence, as we mentioned, but they mentioned that homework is a challenge. Is that something that you would be open to tell your parents that are saying school is important, education is important? Probably not, right? But if they can go to their therapist and say, hey, I'm struggling with homework, and then they can talk about what part of homework is a challenge. Is it knowing that when I go home, the teacher isn't there,
homework is just you, right? Because parents often tell you, go do your homework. They don't do your homework with you. But then when you do have someone that your kids can talk to, then you can come up with solutions. Maybe they need a tutor to help them with the homework. But if they were to come directly to you and say, I need a tutor, you're like, this expense? No, right? You're supposed to know instead of actually hearing your kids. Because sometimes it's not that we don't want to hear them, but in the midst of everything else we have going on, it's not as easy to hear what we're coming with.
Thank you so much. So they are therapists, but they also represent several other therapies that look like us, not great about how youth are dealing with mental health. And we don't have to be sick, they don't have to break down before we pick them up, So let's use the resources that are available. Most of us are insured. I don't know if AHS cover the service. Does AHS cover the service, or do we have to have company insurance to use the services?
For private practice, but we also work in collaboration with existing non-profit organizations such as the Africa Center and Action for Healthy Communities. So if you don't have benefits, we're not leaving you hanging. There are resources where your kids can get connected to a therapist, and it's going to be free for you, right? But it's about having that conversation of saying what's available, what's there, right? For the most part, there are services within Alberta Health Services, but you have to almost like know what you're asking for.
I thought she had a question when she was talking there. All right, thank you, everyone. We have a slide that has some of our recommended resources. Obviously, that list is not all the resources that they are, but we were expecting BIPOC youth as T had advertised. So all those resources are cut across different ethnicities.
When you see something, when you need help, when you have questions, talk to your parents, talk to the people that God has put to support you. I'm not sure the youth can come directly to you and say, hey, be my therapist. It might be no layers and layers of access. But your parents can easily do that for you if you can trust them enough to discuss with them and get you the support. And we have a community of people that are looking out for you. You have cousins, you have friends, you have parents, you have siblings. Do not be quiet. If somebody does something to you that is not great at school, stay on the anti-racism subject. Do not keep it to yourself. Okay? Speak up and get help. We are all here for you and we are rooting for you. So the final word for our youth before we say our closing, final words.
We put sticky notes on tables. If there's any thoughts, feedback that you want to write, feel free to do that and just stick them at the back of the door. You don't have to put your name to them. Just stick them there so that we know, oh yeah, there was a thing for it. This is a way not only to give feedback about the event, but also for us so that we know what's important or what do people want to hear, what do people want to learn, and I'll pass it to Shayla.
I don't really have any, what do you call it? Big words to say. I just want to thank you all for being here. We mentioned earlier that they value in us being in community with each other, sharing space like we did. So I can just say, own your stories, own your identity, be who you are, and be proud of who you are becoming. And yeah, you can continue with your trees at home. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Excuse me, we have the facility for about 6:30. There's a splash pad there for the little children. There's a tennis pad there. So you all can enjoy the facilities now. Thank you so very much again.
Thank you for coming. We will have you again in September for allyship. You will need to learn how to look for who our allies are and to own who our allies are, and to be allies for one another. So look out for the invitation for the September, October, and November sessions. Once again, thank you for making us a part of your evening, for making us